Let's slowly begin. First of all, thank you very much for joining our MICAT community dedicated session. So maybe just to begin with and to break the ice, I would suggest to give a, let's say, yes, a roundtable introduction. From my side, let's begin as such. I'm Konstantina Karalaiou, a member of the Institute for European Energy and Climate Policy, or IEECP, based in Amsterdam. I've been a part of IEECP for almost 2 years and have a background in architecture and spatial planning. Within IEECP, I focus on projects related to decarbonizing the built environment, energy poverty, and more. I will keep it very short. I will give the floor to Audrey as I see the screen.
Good morning. I'm Audrey Dobbins from Fraunhofer EASY in Karlsruhe. So I'm based in Germany, and the majority of our work is around energy policy evaluation. I myself am an energy systems specialist and have done a lot of work on energy poverty.
Great. Laura?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura Tagliabue. I'm an environmental engineer and I work at RSE, a research company based in Milan, in Italy. My research group focuses on analyzing energy scenarios for Italy at national level. We also support the national government in developing national strategies, such as the National Energy and Climate Plan and the long-term strategies. In the SEED MICAT project, our main task is to analyze some national policy measures in order to test the tool in its development phase.
Perfect, thank you. On to Jiří.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jiří Karásek. I'm representing 7D Energy Efficiency Center located in the Czech Republic, where I'm responsible for EU project, energy poverty, energy efficiency financing, and other energy efficiency related issues. And yeah, today I will be presenting 2 Czech case studies.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what the tool actually does, but it's very quick. So the general idea of as Konstantina already mentioned, of the SEED project and the MICAT tool is to develop a tool to facilitate the implementation of the energy efficiency first principle. So the energy efficiency first principle is given in Article 3 of the Energy Efficiency Directive, and this calls for a fair comparison of energy supply and energy efficiency in all energy-related investment decisions. So, and also under this energy efficiency first principle, the aim is to look beyond just energy and climate savings, but to also consider the wider social, economic, and environmental effects, because these often shape the real value of any intervention that we make. But the challenge is that many of these existing approaches are too complex or too data heavy or too dependent on expert input to be able to support consistent reporting. And this makes the implementation of the energy efficiency first principle difficult, especially for routine policy use. So this is where the MICAT tool comes in, because it's designed as a practical, open source, and user-friendly framework that helps to quantify and monetize the multiple impacts in a more structured and accessible way. So the idea is that the tool should be easy to use, have low data requirements, but still provide robust quantification and monetization of these physical impacts so that stakeholders on EU, national, regional, and local level can report on the multiple impacts of measures while still being country, sector, and technology specific. So this shows an overview of the calculation framework for the tool. So as a quick recap of the tool for those who know it, and as a very quick introduction for those of you who are new to the tool, there are basically 2 calculation modules. So one is for the energy efficiency, That's the top half, and one is for renewable energy programs, and that's the bottom half. So basically the workflow is that we have first data that we need to input into the tools, such as energy savings, investment costs, and there's also optional parameters that can be adjusted, which I'll get into later. The second part of the tool then uses impact factors to calculate and quantify the physical impacts, and these are done into indicators across social, economic, and environmental, including health impacts, air pollution, energy security, employment, GDP, etc. In the third step, these are then monetized using factors such as societal costs of carbon or value of statistical life or value of a workday. And finally, we then use the non-overlapping indicators and aggregate these into a cost-benefit analysis. So what we do in this step is that we only include benefits where there's no risk of double counting. For example, some impacts are excluded if we have overlapping health impacts, so that these are not counted twice. For example, one indicator might be for fewer hospital visits and one for work days lost. So we wouldn't count both of the impacts of these. But the tool also has a function at the end so that users can test the sensitivity of the different variables. Each of these steps in the methodology are supported through external modeling and literature and validated with literature. So the tool should be easy to use. It contains vast amounts of default data that are country, sector, and measure specific. The only data that you have to input is the annual energy savings per sector or improvement action for the energy efficiency measures, or the installed capacities for the renewable energy projects. So then if you have better data, the highest priority would be to improve the investment costs and the affected fuels and the fuel split assumptions, because these are otherwise just based on the default information that is in the tool. And then there's also the option to adjust even further information, such as the lifetime of the measure, subsidy rate, the fuel switch parameters. There's also information you can change on the sectoral energy mix, the energy prices, the generation mix, the carbon prices, etc., etc. So just to wrap up quickly, the MICAT tool is really just a practical first step for assessing the multiple impacts. It enables a quick and comparable evaluation of different policies and programs, which can be done in both an ex-ante and ex-post evaluation. The assumptions are kept transparent and adjustable. It's also supported by step-by-step guidance that is provided online. There's training materials, the documentation within the tool and on the website. So this just makes it easy for a user to be able to understand and use with limited data required. And this is a major strength of the tool, but at the same time, it's important to note that the results depend on the data and the assumptions taken. So some system effects are simplified and there's not a dynamic feedback loop. So if you implement specific measures, these aren't internalized in the effects that they would have on the energy generation, for example. So it's not a replacement for full-fledged modeling. But nonetheless, it gives a fast and accessible way to access this kind of information and support policy assessment and reporting. And more specifically, it goes beyond just the information that you can typically grasp through literature, which is just the energy and emission savings. So yeah, you can look on the website for more information. And basically, just to summarize what we're going to do today with the presentations is that we're specifically focusing on how we use the tool in each of the different case studies. And we're not going to aim to give a comprehensive critical assessment of the measures, but we want to give an overview of the approach that was taken, how we found the data, which data we put in, what kind of data we had to adjust, and then highlight some of the results that came out of each of the tools. So that is it for this part. I don't know if there's already some questions or if I should just move directly on to the German case study.
As I posted also in the chat, feel free always to raise your hand or write your questions in the chat at your time. But yeah.
Okay, then I will just continue with the German case study. So what we did was we looked at 3 different national energy efficiency programs. And we selected programs that were specifically in different sectors. So we looked at one in the household sector, one in transport, one in industry, because we wanted to be able to show that the tool can be used for different sectors. We also wanted to show how specifically policy evaluation reports on the energy efficiency programs can be used to quickly and easily provide the reliable data that we need to input into the tool. Because these cover, for example, the economic costs and efficiency, as well as the environmental impacts for the different programs. And we also chose these because we wanted to demonstrate the application of energy efficiency projects for major national policy importance. So just as a quick description of the energy efficiency program. So for the household sector, this was the federal funding program for energy efficiency buildings, or the BEG for short. This is a funding program with grants and loans specifically for the energy efficient building envelope renovations and heater upgrades in all buildings. But as 95% of all of this funding was in the residential sector, for this case study today, we only looked at the impact on the residential sector. The second one is for the transport sector. So this is the directive to promote the sale of electric powered vehicles, or called the environmental bonus. And the aim was to incentivize electric vehicle adoption, and they did this through a mix of government subsidies and manufacturer rebates. And also for this case study, we focused only on battery electric vehicles because this was also the majority of the funding program. And then finally, for the third program, we had the industrial energy efficiency. So this was the EEW. And this program had about 7 different modules targeting different branches of industry. Oh, sorry, 6 modules, and they included cross-cutting technologies, fuel switching, process-specific savings, etc. So this was also provided through grants and loans. And for each of these programs, as I mentioned before, we based the data on the evaluation reports. So we followed basically the same steps as I described previously. So we started with extracting the input data for the evaluation reports from the evaluation reports, and specifically this included the energy savings, the investment costs for each of the measures, subsidy rates, and technology lifetimes. For the industrial sector, because there were so many different modules, we had to merge some of the data so that these would fit into the specific improvement actions that are in the tool. Then in the second step, we adjusted any default values that were in the tool based on what we could extract further from the evaluation report. So for example, for the household sector, we adjusted the share of expected households affected by energy poverty and aligned this with the information that was in the report, looking at the distribution of the subsidies and the grants by the income levels. And then specifically for the transport and industrial sector, the kind of information we adjusted was the share of fuel removed, installed, or affected, because this can also impact the kind of results that we can expect in the result. In the third, we basically then just ran the tool, and then within seconds, the indicators are all calculated. So the online platform actually generates graphics, as you can see here in this middle section on the right. But there's also an option to export the results into Excel, and then you can conduct any further results. So we can look at some of these results, starting with the social impacts. And this includes indicators categorized as either health impacts or improvement of living standards. So for this, not all indicators are relevant for all the programs. We can see the programs here across the top of the table. For example, for the environmental and the transport bonus, the measures that are included in these programs don't actually have any direct impact on improvement of living standard or improvements of indoor air pollution to which asthma cases are attributed. So these indicators are not included. The tool also just does not calculate them. But here we can see the total outcome for each of the projects over their lifetime. So what kind of impact each of these had. And you can see the order of magnitude. The least impact is shaded in red, and the greatest impact is shaded in green. But it's important to note here also that the duration of the programs varies greatly. So the environmental bonus in the transport sector ran for 8 years, while the industry program was for 5, and the household sector covered only 3 years. So this means in order to make the results comparable, we take the exported Excel results and then we calculate the specific impacts. So here's an example. We've taken the specific avoided health impacts linked to air pollution per unit of energy saved. And what we can see here is that the BEG and the environmental bonus actually perform quite similarly in their execution, while the industry, the EEW, which had the greatest impact in the previous table, actually, if you look at it, the per unit of energy saved actually has the least impact. So this is also important to be able to make those kinds of comparisons. Also for the environmental bonus, this is also important to note that this is based on the current electricity supply generation, and were this the generation mix to be more renewable, then we would also see a different impact, because currently, while reducing the consumption of gas and shifting to electricity reduces CO2 and NOxes, but it still increases SOx emissions in the supply sector. So the results would also change if we were to change those parameters. So similar to the social impacts, we can also see what the specific indicators for the economic impacts are. And these are centered around energy impacts and economics and employment. So looking here again at the specific impact, so employment per euro invested, we can see here that the BEG and the EEW perform similarly, and that these have the strongest economic stimulus. So, and that can be attributed to the increased labor in construction and industrial output. For the environmental sector, the types of indicators that we're looking at here are energy impact, so primary energy savings or changes in renewable energy targets. We also have emission impacts, so greenhouse gas emissions and air pollutants. And here we can see how the programs perform against the environmental indicators and compare them against each other. So they perform quite differently and are related to which energy carriers are actually being replaced and the structural characteristics of each sector. So for example, the environmental bonus performs strongly because, as I mentioned, it shifts the transport away from oil-based fuels towards electricity. So we can see that there's clear gains in CO2 and NOx reduction, but again, we see the increase in the SOx emissions in the energy supply sector because it's not fully decarbonized. The BEG, by contrast, reduces emissions through lower heating demand in the building sector, and this is mainly because of gas and oil reductions, and these have higher emission factors. And the EEW stands out the greatest here in terms of energy savings per euro invested, because industrial efficiency measures are often highly targeted and can unlock relatively large savings at comparatively low cost. But what we also wanted to do was to compare the results coming out of the tool with data that we could find in the literature, specifically in these evaluation reports or other literature. And we can see that for the primary energy savings, the BEG and the environmental bonus, they align quite well. In the industrial sector, in both the primary energy savings and the greenhouse gas emissions, we can see some diversion, and this can largely be attributed to just the diversity of the different technologies and industrial processes, because the industrial sector is quite heterogeneous. And so it's important also to, if you have more specific data, to adjust those parameters just so that you can have a better insight into that. But here we can see, for example, that also in the BEG for the CO2 emissions, there's also variations here. And this we can also attribute to the assumptions used in the MICAT tool, because we don't have specific information about which households are saving energy and which specific technologies, sorry. The next step is to take the physical impacts that we calculated, so all of these indicators, and to make these more relatable across these different categories. So we monetize them. And what we can see in these graphs is that GDP has the greatest effect across all of the programs. The second greatest impact comes from energy cost savings. But it's also important here to note that in this kind of assessment that not all benefits behave in the same way over time. So GDP, for example, is a one-off stimulus, while others like energy cost savings, these accrue over the lifetime of the measure, so they're annual. The next thing that you're able to do in the tool is to give a cost-benefit analysis. So just to be able to compare the costs and benefits over the lifetime of each program and show how including the multiple benefits can actually change the financial viability of a project. So right now we're looking here as an example, as one of the CBA indicators is the annuity. And so what we can see here is the yearly balance of costs and benefits over the lifetime of the measures. And on the left-hand side, the dots begin with if we only consider the energy cost savings. But if we include also the multiple benefits, the dots move towards the right, which means that the financial viability of the projects increases substantially. And so this is why we also need to include multiple benefits when making assessments of energy efficiency programs. We also wanted to demonstrate how the tool can be used to compare renewable energy and energy efficiency, since this is what it calls for under the energy efficiency first principle. So I took an example of comparing the investment in building renovations or in rooftop PV. And what we can see here is that both of these programs deliver benefits. So you can see there are improvements in all of the indicators. Of course, rooftop PV has a greater impact on renewable energy targets. But we do also see here that the BEG actually has greater impacts. So increasing energy efficiency would have wider economic or social and environmental and economic benefits over investing in PV. yeah, so that is just that in a nutshell. So I know I went through very quickly, but I just wanted to give you an overview of how the tool could be used, and that you can see, yeah, the variation in the types of indicators that can be assessed, how you can compare it across the different programs, and that you can see the impacts of the different programs. So it was easy to use. As I said, the tool generated the results very quickly. I hardly had to input any information, and from this, it generated results that just shows that you can quickly get an overview of the impact of different results. So, oops, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Audrey. In the meantime, I will also put in our chat the full draft on the German showcase, where people can take a little bit of a further look on what you presented today and dive into the details. Is there any question directly at this point that you would like to ask? If not, then yes, we can pass the floor to Laura already and continue with the Italian showcase.
Okay, let me share the screen. Okay, so thank you, Audrey, for the introduction, and thank you, Constantina. First of all, I would like to state again that the goal of this presentation is to show what the MICATool can do and not to perform a comprehensive critical assessment of the two measures that I will going to present. Therefore, all the data you will see in this presentation are ex-ante assessments and not ex-post evaluations of the two measures. So we started with a selection of two energy efficiency measures for Italy. The first one is the FS Group strategic plan that is related to the mobility sector. FS stands for Ferrovie dello Stato, that is the main railway operator in Italy. And the second measure I will going to analyze is the Transition 5.0 plan that is mainly related to industry. We selected these two energy efficiency measures because of their relevance at the national geographical scale, but also for their prominence in the national context, and because they are in line with the energy efficiency first principle. We selected these two measures also because it was possible to estimate both types of necessary input data for the tool that are, first of all, final energy consumptions, avoided final energy consumption by commodity, and cost of investments of each measure. We also adjusted one global monetization parameters, that is the CO2 price. For these two case studies, we inputted in the tool CO2 prices representative of ETS1 or ETS2 prices. And we didn't use the default social cost of carbon that is set by default in the tool. So let's start with the first case study. As I said before, FS Group is the main railway operator in Italy, and they plan to mobilize 100 billion euros of investment over 5 years. The aim is to promote the modal shift of passengers from private cars to rail, of passengers from private cars to buses, and also the modal shift of freight from road to rail. In particular, the company aims to increase the number of increase by 100 million the number of passenger trips by 2029 by train, and by 95 million the number of bus trips for passengers by 2029. Regarding freight, the target is to increase by 5% the total quantity of freight transported by train each year by 2029. We made a lot of hypotheses to estimate the corresponding energy savings, starting from this overall description of the strategic plan. For example, we started from the latest statistical data available on the company website, were available, and we made a linear interpolation between 2024 and 2029. We assumed an occupancy rate of passenger cars to estimate avoided private car trips. And we also assumed a specific consumption for cars and buses and for train tractions from standard literature. So here you can see the results of the energy saving that we estimated that have to be inputted into MICATool. We estimated avoided diesel and gasoline for avoided private car trips, but also we estimated the increase in electricity due to the increased rail traction, and the same for increased number of buses. In total, we estimated that almost 500,000 tons of oil equivalent can be avoided with these investments, by 2029. And these savings are extended up to 2050 in this case, because we wanted to consider different lifespan of the railway infrastructure and buses, because the railway infrastructure, once is built, will live for decades. So in total, if we consider cumulative savings between 2025 and 2050, this measure will generate a total cumulative savings of about 11 million tons of oil equivalent. Sorry. Okay, so let's go on with the second measure, that is Transition 5.0 plan related to industry. This plan establishes a tax credit scheme on investments in material and immaterial capital goods, such as production machines, motors, but also renewable energy plants for self-consumption by private companies. Also, R&D activities and digital training can be incentivized with this measure. Tax credits can be combined with further incentives at national level, such as white certificates. The condition, however, is that they are subject to specific energy efficiency targets. So as you can see here in the table, the higher is the primary energy saving, the higher is the tax credit that the company can get. So for example, if a company can get a tax credit of 45% on its total investment if the size of the investment is up to 10 million euro, and the primary energy saving is higher than 10% if calculating on the whole production plant, or 15% if the calculation is done on the single production process on which the solution is applied. In total, the allocated public budget was 6.3 billion euros, mainly concentrating in 2024 and 2025, because the measure was financed by the Next Generation EU Italy, so the recovery plan. Okay. In this case, the measure addresses not only industry, but also private company in the commercial, agriculture, and transport sector can apply. However, to analyze the measure with the MICATool, we consider all investments made by industry. The reason of this limitation is that the tool requires to specify one single sector for each measure, and also the breakdown between the commodities. And for industry, so we decided to concentrate our focus. We focus on the industry because historically the measure was targeted to industry. And regarding the estimation of the final energy saving, we started from the National Energy and Climate Plan, because in this plan, for the purposes of Article 8 of the Energy Efficiency Directive, the Italian Ministry estimated that this measure would generate not only primary energy saving, but also corresponding final energy savings. So we starting from this data, and we assume that the industry is responsible for 50% of expected savings for these measures, and therefore also 50% of investments. This is our assumption. Then we estimated the distribution between natural gas and electricity in these savings by comparing the final energy consumption by commodity in the reference and the policy scenarios underlying Italy's National Energy and Climate Plan. Finally, we extended this annual saving that we estimated until 2039 because we wanted to consider an average 15 years lifespan of industrial technologies. So in total, these measures would generate 1.7 million tons of oil equivalent of cumulative savings from industry from 2025 to 2039. So we inputted this data in the MICATool, and before going to the results, I want to show you a map of the quantified indicators for these two measures. We can see that there are 2 social indicators, 5 economic indicators, and 4 environmental indicators. As what I said before, usually for each quantified indicator, there is a monetization and a CBA. However, in some cases, this is not done, for example, because in one case, for example, a suitable monetization approach could not be found in the literature, or mainly because for some indicators, another monetization would constitute a double counting. So, for example, if you see the environmental indicator reduction in air quality, in air pollution, this indicator quantifies the avoided emissions of PM2.5 or NOx or SO2, and so a monetization of this environmental indicator would constitute a double counting of the first 2 social indicators that are also related to air quality improvement. This is a screenshot of the quantified indicators for one measure. This is an example of the health effects indicator linked to reduced air pollution for the Transition 5.0 plan. And so we can see how much casualties are avoided in terms of mortality or hospital admissions. And the important thing is that results can be exported to Excel and summed across the entire time horizon. So different measures can be compared, first of all, in absolute values. So here you can see that the FS plan usually is associated with much larger benefits, social, environmental, and economic benefits. And this is due to the fact that the order of magnitude of investments and savings is higher for the FS plan than the Transition 5.0 plan, but also to the fact that the avoided fuels are different. So in order to make, when 2 measures are very different in terms of time horizon and order of magnitude, as already said before, the important thing is to manipulate data extracted in the Excel file and to calculate the specific impact per unit of final energy saving or per unit of euro invested, so the 2 measures can be compared on the same field. And here you can see that, for example, the avoided mortality, specific avoided mortality in terms of casualties avoided per million tons of oil equivalent saved, is higher for the FS plan than the Transition 5.0 plan. So it's the same than the absolute values, but here they are more comparable. And this is due to the fact that in the case of the FS plan, the avoided fuels is oil, and oil has a higher emission factor, higher emission factors of different PM2.5, but also other pollutant, compared to electricity and gas that are fuels avoided by the transition with the Transition 5.0 plan. Instead, if we look at the impact on GDP, in this case, the two measures are very similar, because in each case, we can see that the positive impact on GDP is about 0.6, 0.7 euro per euro invested in each case. Okay. So we can see results for the monetization. As I said before, once you have extracted you have exported to Excel results of the tool, you can sum all the results across over the life span of the measures. And so here we can see that for the FS strategic plan, so the railway operator strategic plan, with a total capex of 100 billion euro, the total benefits for the society are 89 billion euro. And for the transition 5.0, there is a similar proportion. So with total investment, public and private, of 12.6 billion euro, there are about 10 billion euro of total social benefits. In both cases, the largest benefits comes from impact on GDP that covers about 78% of total social benefits. When we look at this chart, and the curious thing is that for the FS Group strategic plan, here in general, the perspective of the tool is the public perspective. But here for the FS strategic plan, we can also make a reasoning regarding the private benefits. So for example, for car users, the direct benefit is the reduction of energy costs due to avoided fueling of their private car. However, their private benefit should be reduced by the money they spend to buy train tickets. Vice versa, from the railway operator point of view, these benefits should be increased by the cash flow linked to the increased number of passengers that use their services. These private benefits are not visible in the MICAT tool because, as I said before, the MICAT tool adopts the public perspective. However, from the public point of view, this transfer of money from end users and to the railway operator is just a transfer from an actor to the other of the society. So it is correct that in the tool we don't see this private benefit from private users and the railway operator. One suggestion I want to underline is that in order to interpret correctly all the results, it's important to have a look at the methodological fact sheets of each indicator. They are available on the website and they are very clear, and there is also an important discussion of the important literature review of the monetization methodologies. So, for example, if you look at the health effects linked to reduced air pollution indicators, there are some methodological issues that are described. So, for example, in the MICAT tool, the impact pathways are formulated as linear functions starting from PM2.5 emissions to concentration and to health effects. In the real world, we know that this relationship is far from linear. However, the strength of the methodology of the tool is that all calculations, so emissions, concentration, and mortality, are all country specific. Another example is that the monetization is done through the value of statistical life methodology, and this methodology could be somehow controversial for someone, but the strength of the tool is that the user can see and eventually modify the value of statistical life parameter in the input section, so everything is very transparent and user-friendly. Okay, let's go on with the general conclusion. My general conclusion are that once the inputs have been estimated, results with the tool can be obtained in just a few seconds. And this is a very important point because there are several organizations in Italy that have extensive professional expertise in one or more indicator, but it is difficult that one single organization is specialized in all of them, or it can take weeks or months to perform a comprehensive assessment with more advanced tools. In this case, instead, with the MICATool, in just a few seconds, once the inputs have been estimated, you can get an overview of all the social benefits in just a few seconds. In addition, there is the possibility of exporting the results to Excel, and this allows the users eventually to use the tool only for some indicators, for example, economic ones, and maybe do his own analysis for the others, for example, air quality, if that is his expertise. In any case, the tool is flexible and allows the user to adjust various calculation parameters, both in the quantification and the monetization section. In Italy, there were some public administrations during the project that were interested in performing a CBA for public spending only. At the moment, this is not possible, but a specific indicator is under development in the project and will be available soon on the web. And the second point is that in any case, the analysis of the monetization results already allows the users to make some considerations distinguishing between private and public investments. The MICATool in general is useful for comparing the effects of different measures. So, as I said before, if an administration has to decide whether to extend one measure or another, it could decide also considering the social impacts that are generally neglected, mainly using the specific impacts per unit of energy saved or per unit of euro invested. So I've concluded the presentation. Thank you for your attention. I'll leave the floor to Constantina.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Laura. And again, if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand or write to the chat. And yeah, maybe with no further delay, I can give the floor already to Yuri for the last round of presentations.
Okay, I will try to share my screen, otherwise you will not see. Presentation. Good noon to everyone. I hope you can see the front page of the presentation on Czech national cases. Please confirm, because I don't see you right now.
It's all good.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so my task today is to present two Czech national case studies conducted within the last, let's say, 18 months. The case studies are mainly related to the measures under Energy Efficiency Directive and Energy Performance of Building Directive. The first one is linked with the comprehensive deep renovations of hospitals in the country, and the second one is related mainly to the building stock as whole. It is based on energy efficiency principles. Fortunately, a significant part of things I wanted to present today has been already said, so I will be shorter when presenting our results. Yeah, the first case study was with the purpose to illustrate the potential of energy efficiency investment to reduce operating costs in services and healthcare services, and relatively detailed study on renovation measures implemented in 5 hospitals is presented in follow-up slides. Then the second case study presents the effort of the country related to the energy savings in the building stock as a whole. I will try to explain a bit the details or information and the story behind both case studies today. So first I will start with the hospital renovation project where the full results are available now. And then I will present the progress in the second case study. To start with the hospital, there is a large energy efficiency potential in this field. There are many specifics related to hospitals. Mostly the buildings are really energy intensive, consuming significantly more energy per square meter of floor area than other commercial facilities operated 24 hours a day, and the very high demand is in heating, lighting, operating equipment, and ventilation systems. I will not go through all the measures one by another. However, we have such slides available as well if you are interested in. To go through the measures, so the motivation number 1 is to perform deep energy retrofit, and the projects were overseen by the Ministry of Health of the Czech Republic. All 5 cases were implemented through energy performance contracting method, using minimum 30% of required level of energy savings. You might be involved in so-called ESCO model. So in this case, guaranteed savings were performed. The financing was through the State Environmental Fund of the Czech Republic, and there was a contribution from the Ministry of Health, which is responsible for the financing of measures, and partly the hospitals use their own sources. Regarding the scale of the project is not so huge and as in the previous cases. However, it covers 5% of all beds in the Czech Republic in hospitals. So you may see hospital of Bohnice, Kosmonosy, Brno, Hustopeče, and Prague. So typically over 500 beds, and in total we have 776,000 beds in the country. This means that those measures present significant part of the share of Czech hospitals and the measures performed. To show you the entries in the MICATool. So the first savings started in 2023, and the last savings presented in the model are 2025. So we may see also the capex invested in those hospitals. So the projects were performed mainly in 2023, but also 2024. And there is one case with investment in 2026. I will show you what we added, what we entered in the MICATool. First, we entered data on building envelope and energy efficient heating. Then we presented data on electric appliances, behavior change effect, and process-specific energy savings. All those values are in gigajoules, and investment cost as well. Regarding the decision why to include hospitals, they are quite specific because many energy savings are being performed in Czech hospitals, and those are really successful cases, especially when using energy performance contracting method. And 7 was part of the preparation team within the projects. So now I would like to present you some selected numbers from this case. First, regarding the social indicators, first is related to health effect linked to reduce air pollution. So in all cases, we present results starting 2023 and with the end of 2027. So this is impact on a reduction in casualties as presented in the previous case. The second social indicator is on avoided lost working days due to air pollution, and this is avoided absence in days, again with the increase in 2024 and stable in 2025 and 2027. Another indicators are economic ones, added asset value of building. There is presented value in euros, so starting with 5 million in 2024 to 18 million in 2027. Regarding the environmental indicators, those are presented in kiloton of oil equivalent. Again, the numbers has increased significantly in 2024 and 2025. And then environmental indicator related to reduction of air pollution with the reduction in kilotons of NOxes and SO2. We included also calculation of reduction in kiloton of CO2. This is a reduction in greenhouse gas emission, and the monetization regarding the health effect linked to reduced air pollution value in euros. Here are the numbers a bit lower because the impact in 5 hospitals is not so huge in this category. Again, monetization of lost working days due to air pollution is relatively lower as well. Those are the values achieved within the hospitals in the Czech Republic. Unfortunately, the results are not comparable with other case studies due to the amount of building. It's not full program like presented in the previous cases. However, still the numbers motivated our Ministry of Health to perform next projects in hospitals, and were attractive also for the Czech Association of ESCOs in the country. Now I would like to move to a second national case on study of the Czech building stock. First, I would start with the motivation behind. The Ministry of Industry and Trade is responsible for the database of the building stock in the country, as requested in EPBD. And after some difficulties, there appeared agreement with the Ministry of Finance and their internal professional capacity in the modeling to perform study on building stock of the Czech Republic. The study originally started in public sector because Ministry of Finance is responsible for public buildings, but later it was enlarged to all buildings in the country. The building stock was evaluated through all available data in the Czech Republic. It's the biggest study of the building stock ever in the country, and inspired by a case of Finland, the ministry decided to evaluate multiple impacts of energy efficiency through the MICATool. We contacted them, and later they contacted us to share the results and to discuss the results. Last month we had 3 hours discussion with the ministry, and they presented preliminary results, and the results were sent I think last week to our Ministry of Industry and Trade, which is the final beneficiary of the study. To continue within the presentation, the MICATool will be part of the strategy and study developed by the ministry, and those results should be part of the strategy of the Czech Republic within the buildings, and should be the part or base for the decision making in the country. The Ministry of Industry and Trade presented last month the preliminary version of the renovation plan of the Czech Republic. It is called still the National Renovation Strategy. However, we expect broader, deeper analysis to be part of the next version, which will be finalized probably in December 2026, and there the result of the study of the Ministry of Finance and also MICAT tool evaluation should be included. So what we expect and what was the findings? What were the findings of the ministry? So the MICAT tool is largely compatible with the existing institutional procedures related to reporting, strategic planning, and financial evaluation. The depth of the data collected by the ministry is so huge. I would say that in some cases they would need even more details for entries, and they expect that they will present the results by sector, and probably not by program, but by sector. And they expect that the results or the tool will support evidence-based policy design in the country. And to conclude, the ministry, if the team will remain, it's still not sure. The ministry would further use data and would further work with the results for the planning of the actions in the energy efficiency and within the planned program for upcoming programming period. So the study conducted showed that there will be part dedicated to impact on energy poverty in the country, and the results will be compared with the CINEA modeling, which was part of the national energy NECP, National Energy Climate Plan in the country. Yeah, so they already calculated some preliminary estimates like technical and economic potential through the tool, including the environmental impacts. So that's probably all from my side. And if there are questions from your side, we'll be happy to answer. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Yuri.